We're good whenever you're ready.
All right, so I'm here with my engineer, Brian, and we work on another program together called The Sherpa and the Schmuck with my friend Ralph Sutton. Very excited about that program, and there's a few things that I want to talk about that really don't belong on that other program, and they kind of fit nicely on my own private site. They probably won't be viewed too often. Brian is doing some health stuff on himself and has a lot of questions. He's always emailing me. And I thought it'd be better to talk directly face to face to him and tell him what I think about these different subjects. One of them is this popular new trend, the ketogenic diet. We talked about that a lot. It's gaining a lot of momentum. And it gains a lot of momentum because there are products to be sold behind the philosophy. And that people already subscribe to a high-protein diet because they feel more stimulated, they have more energy. If they're working out, they're going to build muscle mass faster. But like most diets, they're not really seeing the big picture. The big picture is that you're not actually designed to eat animal protein, and you're certainly not actually designed to eat as much animal protein as people would consume on the ketogenic diet, which they probably consuming 4 or 5 times more animal protein than they would consume if they were following a paleo diet, which I also disagree with. The paleo diet, the idea behind the paleo diet is that you're following a lifestyle program that ancient man, your ancestors, would have followed. And there's fundamental flaws with that diet too, which I'm going to cover in this conversation here and move as quickly as I can. The big problem here is understanding what your body was designed to consume. It's a carbohydrate burning machine. And people that are new to the nutritional business or people that have a very limited understanding of nutrition will talk about carbohydrates as if they're evil. And what they really should be saying is that refined processed carbohydrates are bad for your health. You know, eating white breads and pasta and all the candy and the cakes and the things that are made with refined sugars, things that are highly refined foods, those things are deleterious to your health. It's not the idea that a carbohydrate is bad for your health. Carbohydrates are most of your diets. You're a fruit and plant eating animal. That's how your teeth, your vision, your hearing, your lack of claws, there's a diet designed for each creature. There's food on this planet for each type of creature. The food that was actually put here for us are fruits and vegetables, nuts, sprouts, and seeds. Now, we're very, very, very crafty creatures. We developed over time to be omnivorous, which means in the lack of the plant-based food, we could transfer and switch over our diet and eat insects. We can eat fish. We can eat the flesh of an animal, and we could sustain ourselves for quite a long time on that type of diet, provided that we're not overloading our diet with the dietary mistakes that are made today by modern people. So in other words, if it was 250 years ago and you were living out in the wilderness and your diet staple was flesh foods, it wouldn't be the optimal diet for you, but certainly you could live a long life and be really healthy because you didn't have pollution, the same type of stress that we have in the modern world. You had access to clean drinking water, and you probably had a rich spiritual worldview. Your attitude about your life likely would be more positive, and that would affect your chemistry. That type of diet worked then. It doesn't necessarily serve mankind today, and the evidence is in the disease and sickness that we have in our world that we live in. Medicine is fighting back disease and sickness that the food industry creates. The food industry has created a tremendous misunderstanding about what people are supposed to be eating. And the food industry panders to people's weaknesses. So people have a weakness for sugary foods. They make more sugary foods. The beauty of a lot of those foods is they're very shelf stable. They're very cheap to manufacture. They taste fantastic, and they give you some type of a boost or a rush of some type that generally alters your state of reality or the way that you feel for the moment. You can feel better for a moment eating a Snickers bar. The long-term effects are obvious. And I don't think anybody would require for me to break down what the long-term effects of eating highly processed foods can cause in the human chemistry. So going back to the keto diet says that if you put your body into a state of ketosis, which is you're using ketones, that you're in a better position to lose weight fast and become a svelte 6'3" beautiful supermodel of a man or a woman, no problems. Well, it is kind of true, actually. It does actually physically work. We know that. You can actually use ketones and lose weight and have a ripped, cut body in a very short period of time by manipulating your chemistry in such a way. However, in the midterm, not just the long term, there's deleterious effects to the body because you don't consider the acidosis effect you have of having a high protein diet, which is also a chemical exchange, which is difficult to explain without having a chalkboard. You don't talk about the problems with having a diet filled with food that itself has toxins in it that your body now has to flush out. In other words, when you eat the flesh of an animal, whether it's a fish, chicken, poultry, chicken, fish, pork, cow, whatever animal you're consuming, at the moment of its death, there are toxins in its flesh that you are now consuming, that you have to get rid of. The burden that you're putting on your filter system just for those calories is not a good exchange. The cleanest source of energy for the human body is vegetables and fruits, nuts, sprouts, and seeds. And if you want to build a high-risk diet where you're at risk of inflammatory diseases, where you're at risk of cancer, then continue to consume a high-protein diet. It's miraculous to me that we've gone back to that way of thinking after 20 or 30 years, in the last 20 or 30 years, where there's been so many negative things associated with high-protein or high-fat diets. It's amazing that anybody would come forward with a diet like the keto diet and promote it. I warn you to run away from anyone who recommends a ketogenic diet, even though it sounds like a get-rich-quick thing, a scheme. Like, in other words, if you're trying to fit into a bathing suit quickly, do a ketogenic diet. These are nonsensical things. You can do this through a calorie restriction diet and also by consuming a diet filled with foods that are very nutritious. They fill your body. They satiate your appetite. They don't require you to continue feeding it throughout the day because you're still looking for some missing nutrient. Even though it's happening on a very subtle level, people consume more on diets that are not rich in nutrients. So where the paleo diet fails, in my opinion, is that it's not very specific. It's very abstract. Because why is it abstract? Well, Paleolithic man existed for 100,000 years. So what exact period are you trying to replicate? What term are you trying to go for in that 100,000 year span? And also you have to remember mankind, Paleolithic man, spanned all of Earth. So which region are you talking about? The other thing that you're talking about is that Paleolithic man did not have all the obstacles that modern man has. That's number one. And number two, modern man has some luxurious advantages that Paleolithic man didn't have. We have access to food in a way that Paleolithic man did not. Now, that could be considered a curse or a blessing, depending on who you're talking about. But when you live in a city and you're bombarded by all of the energies that literally take away from your immune system, all the noise, all the hustle and bustle of people, all the anxieties that we have in a city, it's definitely beneficial that someone's able to provide you with a wholesome coconut as a source of food. You couldn't get that 100 years ago. They weren't flying coconuts in from Thailand. So although I'm not for that way of living ultimately for mankind, it's kind of the medicine of the time. That in today's day and age, you have access to foods, whether it's a coffee bean or a coconut, that you would not have if you lived in a place where there was no technology and no means of transportation. So the paleo diet also is kind of a fad diet because it doesn't address any specific need of the human chemistry. The thing to look at in your diet is to understand that there's definitely a psychological component to how you eat. You're going to gravitate towards foods that make you feel good in the moment versus good foods that are good for you long term, especially if you're a layman and you don't really understand the negative effects of bad food. So you're just going to be a person who wanders and gets what's ever available, what's sold to you in the best packaging, what classifies in your mind as being the food that's suitable for who you are. Whether price point is your motivation, or you're a type of person who reads labels and you're seeing things like, the grams of sugar or how much protein is in it, or you look very closely at the ingredients. When you buy food from a store, it's almost similar to how you would elect somebody as president. The package has to be something that you are in alignment with, and whatever you're looking for on the label has to symbolize something that you believe in. In the health food industry, the problem why the health food industry doesn't move quickly is because they too are constantly misinforming people. They're overcomplicating what diet is supposed to be. They're not telling people the simple truth, because when you tell people the simple truth, there's less things to sell them. And when you create abstract ideas in people's minds, there's more things that you can package and sell them, like the keto diet or the paleo diet or some new superfood. These things, they're great, they're wonderful, there could be some truth to them. Not everything about them is completely wrong, but they're not the miracle cure that people are looking for. So in conclusion, what is the miracle cure that people are looking for? Well, subscribe to my YouTube channel and watch some more of my YouTube videos on my personal site, and I promise to get to the bottom of that. Maybe not in the fastest method possible. Thank God we're not paying YouTube by the minute or by the second for their bandwidth. In my next video, I'm going to talk more about what the human diet should look like in 2019 going forward. Thanks a lot.